A nightmare journey through Canada. Casey and Alex had finally embarked on the long-awaited trip to Canada they had always dreamed of. As they traveled through forests adorned with the colorful leaves of autumn, their hearts were filled with excitement. The train journey promised to be a true adventure for them. Casey couldn't hide her excitement as she looked out the train window. Alex, sitting beside her, gazed lovingly at his wife. This trip was not just a vacation for them, but also a journey of discovery. However, there was a foreboding feeling along the tracks. Casey had a sense that this journey would end in a nightmare. As the train moved through the forested terrain, it suddenly stopped. According to the announcement from the engineers, there was a fault on the tracks, making it impossible for the train to proceed. Casey and Alex, along with the other passengers, got off the train and began to wait for the situation to be resolved. As sunset approached, the sky grew darker. Casey's anxiety began to increase. Alex noticed his wife's worried expression and told her to stay calm. However, the silence and darkness outside only deepened Casey's fears. After a while, teams began working to fix the fault on the tracks. However, things were not going as planned. The team leader informed the passengers that the repairs would take longer than expected. They would spend the night at the train station and continue their journey in the morning. The train station was an old and abandoned structure. The faded posters on the walls and worn-out furniture indicated that it had not been in service for a long time. While Casey and Alex were spending time in the waiting room with other passengers, Casey suddenly felt a strange sensation. She felt an intense cold and heard strange noises around her. When she mentioned these to Alex, her husband laughed it off jokingly. However, the increasingly strange sounds and shadows creeping along the ceiling continued to unsettle Casey. Later that night, Casey and Alex decided to sleep. However, they were unaware that Casey would have a night full of nightmares. In her sleep, Casey found herself running along the train tracks. As she moved through the darkness, she felt someone breathing down her neck. Terrified, she kept running until she suddenly stopped and turned around. In front of her stood a dark figure inside an old and worn-out train. Casey stepped back trembling. The figure looked at her with a deathly, vacant expression. Casey's fear grew, and she began to scream in panic. She woke up from her nightmare, feeling restless and in a bad mood. Morning had come, and the other passengers started to disembark at the train station. Casey, shaken by her terrifying dream, got up and told Alex about it. Alex tried to reassure his wife, saying it was just a nightmare. However, Casey's fear and anxiety kept increasing. When they mingled with the other passengers at the station, Casey began to scrutinize the people around her. Although everyone seemed normal, there was a vague, feather-like anxiety within Casey. While waiting for the train's repair to be completed, Casey and Alex decided to explore the surroundings. As they walked along the old tracks outside the station, Casey's strange feelings intensified. She heard unusual sounds and saw shadows that weren't there. Suddenly, she noticed a bulge. Strange sound was rising from the underground, and a light in the depth dazzled her eyes. Alex, noticing Casey's anxiety, tried to calm her down, but Casey's fear continued to grow. She was curious about the source of these underground sounds and lights. With a moment of courage, Casey decided to walk toward the underground. Alex tried to stop her, but she descended resolutely. As they went deeper, the sounds and lights grew stronger. She felt that something was wrong. Finally, they reached a tunnel. There were broken metal pieces and old train wagons scattered around. Casey and Alex were suddenly engulfed in darkness, surrounded by an eerie silence. But then the lights came back on, revealing a group of ghosts with vacant eyes watching them from within an old, decayed train. Casey's heart was pounding out of her chest. These dark and terrifying entities were approaching them. As Casey and Alex were surrounded by ghosts, they started to scream and run. But no matter which way they turned, they saw the ghosts watching them. Suddenly, an unexpected sound came from the train. The train's whistle blew, and the train started moving on the tracks. Casey and Alex, using their last bit of strength, jumped inside the train and closed the doors tightly. The train sped along the tracks, leaving the ghosts behind. Before disembarking, Casey and Alex did not tell anyone about their terrifying experience. The train disappeared into Canada's dark and mysterious forests. However, the nightmare they experienced that night became an unforgettable memory for both of them. From that day on, Casey and Alex were even afraid to talk about the train journey in Canada. The strange and horrific experience at that train station had deeply shaken their souls. Casey and Alex couldn't escape the impact of the event and couldn't forget the nightmare they had experienced. After a while, Casey tried to overcome her trauma by turning this horrifying experience into a book. However, no matter what they did, it was impossible to forget that night. The couple no longer even thought about talking about the train journey in Canada. Although they tried to move on with their lives, the scars of the event were deep. One day, while Casey was researching online, she discovered something interesting about the train journey in Canada. It was mentioned that the train station had been abandoned years ago due to an accident and that a series of strange events had occurred thereafter. The couple decided to investigate the incident further to better understand the nightmare they had experienced. Through their research, they found out that the ghosts on the train were the spirits of passengers who had died in the accident and were still roaming there. They discovered that the ghosts were still trapped in their past and continued to suffer at that dark and abandoned train station. When Casey and Alex better understood their experience, their fear eased a little. However, it would take time to completely forget that night and overcome the impact of the event. The couple was struggling to sleep at night to avoid reliving the nightmare they had experienced and were dealing with the lingering effects of the train journey. Over time, Casey's book began to attract the interest of many people. Learning that they were not the only ones who had lived through that night and that other people had similar terrifying experiences gave Casey and Alex a new perspective. Finally, Casey and Alex managed to come to terms with their nightmare experience. Although the memory of the event was still fresh in their minds, they knew that the difficult times they had gone through together had made them stronger and that they could overcome any challenges they faced in life together. And so, Casey and Alex moved on with their lives, leaving behind the terrifying experience of their train journey in Canada. Although it was impossible to forget that night and completely leave behind the nightmare they had experienced, they knew that the difficult process they had gone through together had brought them closer and that they could overcome any challenges in life together. Thus, Casey and Alex continued their lives, growing stronger together with the memory of the nightmare they had experienced. The haunting train journey. Sophia and her boyfriend James bought train tickets for the long-planned vacation they had been eagerly anticipating. The train journey was supposed to be a delightful adventure for them. However, they had no idea that mysterious and eerie events awaited them. While waiting for the conductors at the train station, they noticed that the train was very old and poorly maintained. The carriages were rusty, and when they entered, they were met with a dirty and unpleasant smell. Yet, they remained hopeful and didn't pay much attention to these issues. At first, everything seemed fine as the train started moving. They settled into their seats, trying to enjoy the scenery. However, as the journey progressed, they realized that something was wrong. They began to hear mysterious sounds in the corridors of the carriage. The creaking of doors, the wailing of windows, and strange footsteps. Considering the speed of the train, these sounds were quite disturbing. When they noticed a staff member going to the adjacent carriage, they asked him about the situation. However, the staff member, acting mysteriously and fearfully, said nothing, and hurried away. This incident created a sense of unease in the young couple. As the train moved on, strange events began to occur inside the carriage. Items moved on their own. Lights flickered on and off abruptly. Despite their growing hesitation, Sophia and James continued their journey. However, the events inside the train became increasingly eerie. One night, they claimed to see a strange figure inside the train. A ghostly entity was wandering the corridors of the carriage. Its face was covered, and its eyes were black voids. Sophia and James had nightmares that night, and even when they were awake, they couldn't distinguish reality from dreams. The train became more and more mysterious. Some passengers disappeared, and others were found dead under mysterious circumstances. Sophia and James wanted to escape from this strange situation. However, when the train suddenly stopped, they had to face their real nightmare. The train stopped at an old train station. When they got off, they realized they were surrounded by skinny trees and an eerie silence. It was a deserted place, and they felt a mysterious curse hanging over it. As Sophia and James wandered around the train station, they saw an old sign. The sign read, "Do not enter here." Despite this warning, their curiosity led them into the station. Inside the station building, they found a room filled with strange symbols and cursed writings. Before they could understand what was happening, a heavy door slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. Panic-stricken, Sophia and James tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. They turned to the window, but it was secured with iron bars. With no electricity in the station, they used a small flashlight to illuminate their surroundings. At that moment, a figure appeared in the candlelight at the other end of the room. With long black hair and a pale face, it looked like a ghost. Sophia and James backed away in horror. The figure was the same ghost they had seen inside the train, with black eyes and silent steps moving around them. Sophia and James were trapped in the room with the ghost. They couldn't understand what it wanted or why it was following them. They huddled in a corner, waiting anxiously, as the sound of footsteps grew closer with each passing second. The candle slowly began to go out, and a dark mist spread throughout the room. In a brief moment of light, Sophia and James froze in terror. Hundreds of ghostly figures appeared around them, staring with black eyes and whispering in thin voices. Sophia and James' spirits began to tremble, trapped by an army of cursed souls in the old train station. The ghosts started to lead the young couple towards a terrifying ceremony. Their screams echoed through the silent, empty station. While the train waited at the station, the mysterious curse behind the strange events inside the train was revealed. After that night, Sophia and James were never seen again. The train station became an abandoned place that no longer accepted any passengers. People avoided it because of the ghost stories associated with it, believing that Sophia and James had vanished during the cursed journey of the black train. And the train, with its mysterious and eerie presence, continued its journey. With its curse, it awaited new victims at every stop. The train continued to move along dusty tracks like a dark shadow, spreading its curse further and mingling with the frightened screams of the innocent. The fate of Sophia and James was never known, their whereabouts forever a mystery. The old train station became a place for mysterious ghosts and cursed souls. The wild screams heard at night ruled over the fearful hearts of passengers. The train station was now known as a forbidden and cursed place, with no one daring to set foot there. Sophia and James' story was lost in the infinity of a terrifying train journey. The black-eyed ghost and cursed souls may still be roaming that old station. Perhaps one day, a new passenger's terrifying journey will begin, and they will follow the traces of the lost young couple. The mysterious story of the train will continue forever, with the curse of the old train station and the black train remaining etched in the memories of those who experienced its nightmares. And that enigmatic train will silently continue its journey in the darkness of the night, dragging along the traces of a once horrifying story into eternity.